First contact gone wrong. The Zaxian battle cruiser emerged from hyperspace like a predator sizing up its prey. Commander Vexthor's mandibles clicked with anticipation as he studied the small human vessel through the bridge's panoramic viewport. The ship's markings identified it as the RS Aurora, some kind of research vessel, practically defenseless by his species standards. Pathetic, he chittered to his bridge crew. These humans venture into deep space with vessels that couldn't withstand a meteor strike. Ready boarding parties. But something about the human ship's design bothered him. While most civilian vessels they'd encountered had obvious weapon emplacements and armor plating, this one appeared almost deliberately understated. Its clean lines and minimal external features suggested either complete naivety or something else. "Sir," his tactical officer interrupted, "we're detecting unusual energy readings from their hull. They don't match any known weapon signatures." "Irrelevant. They're scientists, not warriors. Commence the attack pattern." The Zaxian cruiser's engines flared as it moved to engage. Standard procedure: disable engines, breach hull, collect specimens, and technology. They'd done this dozens of times across the galaxy. But as they closed in, the human vessel made no attempt to flee or raise shields. Instead, the RSS Aurora's captain appeared on their comm screen. A middle-aged human female with silver-streaked hair and steady eyes. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Royal Science Service. I see you've taken an interest in our research vessel." Vexthor mandibles twitched with amusement. "Surrender your vessel and prepare to be boarded. Resist, and we'll vent your atmosphere." "I'm afraid I can't do that," Chen replied calmly. "This ship carries classified research materials. Protocol demands we protect them. I suggest you reconsider your approach." The bridge crew chittered with laughter. A science vessel trying to intimidate a Zaxian warship. "You have no weapons, human. Your bravado is meaningless." Chen's expression didn't change. "Commander, I want to be very clear. We are a civilian research vessel, but that doesn't mean we're defenseless. This is your final warning." Vexthor cut the transmission with a dismissive gesture. "Launch boarding pods. Let's show these humans what real space warfare looks like." As the pods streaked toward the Aurora, his tactical officer's antennas suddenly went rigid. "Sir, those energy readings, they're changing. The hull is." The officer never finished his sentence. The Aurora's seemingly smooth hull suddenly rippled like liquid metal, revealing dozens of concealed weapon ports. But instead of conventional energy weapons, they unleashed a storm of what looked like metallic dust. "Meaningless," Vexthor sneered. "Our shields will." The dust cloud passed straight through their shields, as if they didn't exist. Within seconds, it surrounded the boarding pods. Through the viewport, Vexthor watched in horror as the pods simply disappeared, breaking apart into component atoms. "Nanite weapons," his science officer whispered. "They've weaponized their research technology." Before Vexthor could respond, Captain Chen's face appeared again on their screen. "Commander, what you just witnessed was a controlled demonstration of our hull-mounted nanite defense system. Your boarding pods have been disassembled at the molecular level. We could do the same to your entire ship." The bridge fell silent. Vexthor's mandibles trembled as he realized their mistake. They hadn't targeted a defenseless science vessel. They'd attacked a floating laboratory of horrors. "But we're scientists," Chen continued, her voice harder now. "We prefer to study, not destroy. Your ship's prefix codes identify you as Zaxian raiders. We've been looking for an opportunity to study your technology up close. Thanks for volunteering." The last thing Vexthor saw before the second nanite wave hit was Chen's slight smile. As his ship began to disintegrate around him, he finally understood. Humans didn't need warships to be dangerous. They'd turned science itself into a weapon. His final thought, as the bridge dissolved into its component atoms, was a warning he'd never be able to share. Never assume a human vessel is defenseless, especially when it appears to be. "The price of underestimation." "Status report," Captain Chen demanded. watching the Zaxian ship dissolve into a glittering cloud through the bridge viewport. Dr. Maya Rodriguez, head of the nanite research team, consulted her holographic display. Containment field is holding at 99.8% efficiency. The Zaxian vessel's molecular structure is being cataloged and stored in our quantum arrays. No data loss. Chen nodded. When the RSS Aurora had been commissioned as humanity's first deep space research vessel, many questioned putting a civilian science ship so far from protected space. But the Royal Science Service had learned from humanity's early encounters with hostile species. They'd developed an elegantly terrible solution: turn their research into their defense. Security Chief Taylor, are our guests secured? A broad-shouldered woman in tactical gear appeared on the bridge's comm screen. 5 Zaxian survivors contained in Holding Bay 3, Captain. The nanites preserved their biological structures as requested. Dr. Rodriguez's containment protocols worked perfectly. Chen allowed herself a small smile. The Zaxians had expected to find soft scientists, easy prey. Instead, they'd encountered humanity's true strength, the marriage of scientific brilliance and military precision. In Holding Bay 3, Commander Vex Thor and his surviving officers huddled together, watching warily as human security personnel moved around them. Their weapons and armor had been dissolved, leaving them in simple containment suits. "I don't understand." Vex Thor chittered quietly to his tactical officer. Their ship registry clearly marked them as researchers. "Where are their warriors?" A calm voice answered in perfect Zaxian. "We are the warriors." Dr. Rodriguez stepped into the holding bay, accompanied by 2 security officers. She wore a standard science division uniform, but carried herself with unmistakable confidence. "I'm the one who designed the nanite defense system that disabled your ship," she continued. "Every scientist aboard the Aurora is also trained in combat operations. Every security officer has advanced technical training. We don't divide ourselves the way you do." Vex Thor's mandibles clicked in disbelief. "Impossible. No species can master both warfare and science to such degrees. That's why you lost," Security Chief Taylor said, entering the bay. "You see divisions where we see opportunities. Every human aboard this ship can fight. Every fighter can think. It's not about being warriors or scientists. It's about being human." Dr. Rodriguez activated a holographic display, showing the Zaxian ship's molecular reconstruction. "Your vessel is teaching us so much already. The quantum storage arrays are cataloging every atom, every engineering decision, every technological choice your species made. In attacking us, you've given us decades' worth of research data. You're studying us." Vex Thor's antenna twitched with growing horror. "Even now." "Especially now." Chen's voice came through the bay's speakers. "The Royal Science Service exists to expand human knowledge. Sometimes that means peaceful exchange. Sometimes it means learning from those who mistake our curiosity for weakness." Taylor stepped closer to the containment field. "Here's what happens next. We'll deliver you to the nearest human outpost. You'll be treated well, interviewed extensively, and eventually returned to your people. And you'll deliver a message." "What message?" Vex Thor asked, though he already knew. "That humanity's scientists are not prey," Rodriguez answered. "That our research vessels are not easy targets. That the difference between our science ships and our warships isn't the presence of weapons. It's merely their visibility." As if to emphasize her point, the bay's viewport showed the last fragments of the Zaxian cruiser being absorbed into the Aurora's storage systems. Not a single atom would be wasted, every piece of their technology now serving to advance human knowledge. Vex Thor watched, finally understanding the true horror of their mistake. They hadn't attacked a defenseless science vessel. They'd attacked a floating fortress of human ingenuity, where every crew member was both scholar and warrior, where research and combat were 2 sides of the same coin. And somewhere out in space, he realized, were human ships that didn't bother hiding their weapons at all. Turning the tables. Information rippled through the galactic underworld faster than light. A Zaxian raiding cruiser, pride of their pirate fleet, reduced to component atoms by an unarmed human research vessel. Most dismissed it as propaganda. The few who believed knew better than to test the truth themselves. But the Krevak's dominion wasn't most species. 12 warships against one human vessel. First strategist Nixlera purred, her serpentine body coiled around her command throne. Even if their technology is as advanced as reported, they cannot withstand such overwhelming force. The RSS Aurora drifted in the void before them, its clean lines betraying no concern for the Krevak's battle fleet surrounding it. Captain Chen stood on her bridge, expression unchanged as she studied the tactical display. They're employing a Taraxian battle web formation, Security Chief Taylor noted, designed to counter nanite weapons. Someone's been doing their homework. Good, Dr. Rodriguez replied, fingers dancing across her console. It's been theoretical until now. Time to gather some practical data. The Krevak's fleet opened fire simultaneously, their energy weapons forming a perfect cage around the Aurora. But instead of attempting to evade or counterattack, the research vessel simply disappeared. Impossible. Nixlera's scales bristled. No cloaking technology can. Not cloaking, her science officer interrupted, fear in his voice. The humans, they phase-shifted their entire vessel into another dimensional plane. The Aurora reappeared inside the Krevak's formation, but something was different. Its hull now rippled with patterns that hurt to look at, geometric impossibilities that shouldn't exist in three-dimensional space. Fascinating. Dr. Rodriguez's voice echoed across all Krevak's communication channels. Your battle web formation is quite effective against conventional nanite attacks. Unfortunately, we've been researching quantum dimensional engineering. Would you like to see the results? The Aurora's hull fractured into recursive patterns, each piece existing simultaneously in multiple dimensions. The surrounding space began to warp, reality itself protesting against what the humans had done to it. The dimensional barrier is becoming unstable, the Krevak science officer reported, panic rising. They're not just phase-shifting, they're weaponizing the space between dimensions. Nixlera watched in horror as her perfect formation began to unravel. Ships started disappearing, not destroyed but simply relocated. Some blinked into existence thousands of kilometers away. Others appeared inside out, their crews unharmed but thoroughly disoriented. Don't worry, Captain Chen's calm voice filled every surviving ship's communications. We've calculated the precise dimensional coordinates for each vessel's displacement. None of your crews will be harmed. This is a research mission, after all. The last thing Nixlera saw before her flagship was dimensional shifted was Dr. Rodriguez making notes on a tablet, calmly documenting the effects of their theoretical physics turned into practical warfare. When the Krevak's fleet reassembled hours later, scattered across half a solar system, they found a simple message buoy waiting for them. Thank you for participating in our field research on multi-dimensional combat applications. Your contribution to human scientific understanding is appreciated. Published findings will be available through the Royal Science Service's public database within 1 standard year. The message was signed, RS Aurora Research Team, Department of Applied Quantum Mechanics and Defensive Technologies. In the weeks that followed, the galactic underworld learned a new truth. The humans hadn't armed their science vessels because they had to. They'd done it because research and defense were the same thing to them. An endless experiment in surviving the universe's hostility through understanding it completely. Not just warriors. The distress signal reached the Aurora through quantum channels that weren't supposed to exist. A human colony under attack by the Krevak's dominion. Retaliation for their earlier humiliation. We could reach them in 6 hours using conventional drives, Taylor reported. Or, Dr. Rodriguez interjected, we could test the new quantum tunneling system. Chen nodded. Initiate Project Folded Space. The Aurora's engines hummed with impossible mathematics. Space-time curved around the ship like paper being folded, bringing 2 distant points together. They emerged above the colony world instantly, finding a scene of chaos. 3 Krevak's dreadnoughts hung in orbit, their weapons bombarding the colony's shields. But something was wrong. The colonial defenses were holding far too well for civilian technology. Interesting, Dr. Rodriguez observed. They've adapted our phase shift research. The colonists have tuned their shields to exist partially out of sync with normal spacetime. Civilians implementing theoretical physics under fire, Chen mused. Remind me to recommend commendations for their science team. The Kryvax noticed their arrival. This time, they came prepared with dimensional stabilizers and anti-nanic fields. What they weren't prepared for was human improvisation. Dr. Rodriguez, Chen called, remember the conversation about weaponizing terraforming technology. The scientist's eyes lit up. Authorization to proceed with Experiment 17B. Granted. The Aurora's research bays opened, releasing swarms of terraforming machines originally designed to reshape planets for colonization. Reprogrammed by Rodriguez's team, they now targeted the Kryvax ship's molecular structure. Fascinating, Rodriguez commented, watching the machines work. They're not just breaking down the ships, they're reconstructing them into elaborate crystalline structures. The atomic resonance patterns are beautiful. The Kryvax crews watched in horror as their mighty warships transformed into delicate crystal sculptures, transparent and utterly harmless. Inside each ship, every piece of technology remained perfectly preserved, in artistic arrangements that would have impressed museum curators. A bit dramatic, Taylor noted. Rodriguez shrugged. Science should be aesthetic when possible. The colony's quantum communications crackled. RS Aurora, this is Colonial Science Director Peters. Thanks for the rescue, though we had a betting pool on how long we could maintain the phase-shifted shields. Care to share some research notes? Transmitting now, Rodriguez replied. Your shield modifications are quite innovative. We'd love to collaborate on further developments. As the Kryvax crews were safely evacuated from their crystallized ships, Chen reflected on humanity's true strength. Not the weapons they could build, but their endless drive to understand, adapt, and improve. Every human was a scientist at heart, whether they wore a lab coat or carried a gun. The colony would later display the crystallized dreadnoughts as public art installations, a reminder that human science could transform even the tools of war into something beautiful. A lesson in humanity. News of the crystallized Kryvax fleet spread through galactic civilization like wildfire. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session, demanding an explanation from Earth's representatives. Ambassador Chen, formerly captain, stood before the assembled species, the RSS Aurora's final mission report displayed behind her. You turned warships into art installations, the Zaxian representative chittered. Why? Because we could, Chen replied simply, and because it taught us something new about matter reconstruction at a quantum level. Every encounter is a learning opportunity. The council chamber erupted in overlapping alien voices. The Kryvax ambassador rose, scales gleaming. Your research vessels are weapons platforms. No, Chen corrected. Our research vessels are research vessels. The fact that research can be applied defensively is simply efficient. Dr. Rodriguez, now director of the Royal Science Service's Deep Space Division, stepped forward. When humanity first reached the stars, we faced a choice: build warships or continue exploring. We chose both, and neither. Every human vessel is a laboratory. Every crew member is a researcher. Even our warriors study. Even our scientists fight. She gestured to the mission logs. The Aurora never fired a single traditional weapon. We simply applied our research in practical ways. The nanite defense system, a breakthrough in molecular engineering. The phase shift technology, applied quantum mechanics. The crystallization, advanced terraforming techniques. You're saying all human ships are like this? A council member asked. No, Security Chief Taylor answered, now wearing Admiral's insignia. The Aurora was a research vessel. Our actual warships are much worse, but you'll never see them, because we prefer to solve problems through understanding rather than force. Chen activated a holographic display showing the transformed Kryvax ships. We preserved every piece of their technology, every scrap of data. Not to copy or steal, but to learn. And what we learned will be shared with the galactic scientific community, because that's what researchers do. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity hadn't built a war fleet or a research fleet. They'd created something far more terrifying. A civilization that saw no difference between advancement and defense, between learning and survival. The RSS Aurora has completed its deep space mission, Chen concluded. Its research findings are now available to all species, including, of course, how to defend against every technique we demonstrated. Because science isn't about hoarding knowledge, it's about understanding our universe together. She smiled. We look forward to future collaborative research opportunities, preferably peaceful ones. As the council session ended, a junior Zaxian diplomat approached Chen. Is it true? All your ships are like this? Young one, Chen replied kindly. Every human is like this. We never stop being curious children who take things apart to see how they work. We just got better at putting them back together in more interesting ways. The Aurora became a legend, but not as a warrior ship. Instead, it was remembered as humanity's ultimate expression of their true nature, an unstoppable drive to understand everything they encountered, even if they had to disassemble it atom by atom to do so. The galaxy learned to recognize human vessels not by their weapons, but by their laboratories. And somehow, that was far more terrifying.